Hey, welcome to the Listen Bitch podcast. I'm Branden Lynette, not here to coddle your comfort. I'm here to fight for your potential. This is pretty much a no bullshit, faith fueled podcast that's going to shake you out of your excuses and call you back to power, just kind of remind you who God created you to be. So if you're ready for real talk, raw truth, and revival energy, listen, bitch, it is time to rise. Before we get started, I want to make sure you guys stop guessing, start testing. If you're taking a handful of supplements, but you've never checked your omega balance, you're probably wasting money. The truth is, if your body's out of balance, those vitamins, supplements, none of it's doing jack. I've got an omega blood test linked in the show notes. It's going to show you exactly what's going on inside of you. No guessing, no gimmicks. Once you see your numbers, you can actually fix the root of the problem and not just throw pills at the symptoms. This is all about test, don't guess. Your body deserves better, and your wallet does as well. Today's episode, 7 lies we tell ourselves. And if I'm being honest, we could start with lie number 8, and that would be saying that your brand does not need exposure like this. I'm looking for a few aligned sponsors who want to get their name out there with a community that would actually listen and buy. So if you're over the basic ad game and you want your product featured across heavy social media traffic, podcast episodes, and my audience of faith-driven, freedom-minded, badass humans, this is your sign. You bring the product, I bring the platform, and together we'll make some noise. And don't forget, it's literally a tax write-off, okay? You can sponsor a savage-ass show and call it responsible business, okay? God bless capitalism. DM me, sponsor, if you are ready to team up with myself, listen, bitch, and stop lying to yourself about visibility, okay? Lie number 1, 7 lies that we tell ourselves that are very common. I'll be happy when. And this is like standing at the bottom of a mountain convinced that joy only exists at the summit. Like you're going to tell yourself, I'll be super happy. I'll be super content when I get married, when I make more money, when I lose more weight, when the kids are older. And I feel like a lot of people have spoken this lie over themselves for a very long time. Perfectionists, anyone who's bought into the culture's promise that the next milestone is finally going to satisfy them, and we believe it because we have this consumer culture and it's constantly dangling carrots in front of us. Social media is showing us everyone else's highlight reels. Plus, it feels safer to postpone happiness than to risk feeling it now and then potentially losing it. You will spend your entire life in waiting rooms. That's it. Missing the actual appointments God has scheduled for you today. You become a perpetual tourist in your own life, never unpacking your bags. And research shows that this arrival fallacy leads to chronic dissatisfaction, anxiety, and depression. You reach goals and feel empty because you've trained yourself that joy is always one step ahead. So when you finally stop telling yourself this lie, you're going to discover what Paul, my homie Paul, you guys, I talk about him a lot, don't I? About what he meant about learning to be content in all circumstances. You start noticing gifts in ordinary moments, you know, your kids' laughter, the warmth of your tea, the way a sunset paints on the trees. You realize God is not withholding joy until you perform better. Like he's offering it to you right now, all around you. And your goals become exciting pursuits rather than just like a prerequisite for permission to just feel alive. Lie number 2, and I've heard this one a lot lately, is I'm too broken for God to use me. This is like being a cracked pot in a potter's workshop, right? Like you are all set. You're convinced you belong in the discard pile while watching the perfect vessels get filled. Like you believe your past mistakes, your trauma, your mental health struggles, your repeated failures, they have disqualified you from meaningful purpose. And anyone with a painful past and people struggling with like addiction, anyone who's experienced like significant failure, those you've internalized shame from toxic environments, this is the lie you're telling yourself. There's a lot of places that have emphasized performance over grace, and all of that is bullshit. But we believe it because shame is a convincing lie. Shame is a very loud voice. Shame becomes a really big monster. So we project our own harsh judgment onto God. And the devil loves it because he's telling you, like, yeah, absolutely, grace has limits. So we end up comparing our behind the scenes struggle to everyone else that has a polished testimony. So now you've sidelined yourself from the very purpose that you're created for. Your gifts are gathering dust, and you have become a spiritual spectator just watching other people serve while convinced that you're just unqualified. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't step out in faith, so you don't get to see God work through you, which confirms the fact that you're unworthy. Meanwhile, your whole personalized, unique story of redemption, which actually could encourage other people, ends up staying locked away. But when you reject this lie, you kind of join this like biblical hall of fame where we've got my friend Moses. And I don't know if you guys know this, but he was a murderer. Okay. We have David. He was kind of a hoe. Peter, absolute denier, and Paul the persecutor. You realize that God specializes in using cracked pots. They leak his light more effectively. So your weakness becomes the exact place that his strength shows up most dramatically. You stop waiting to be fixed enough and you start letting God use you in your process. The freedom is staggering. Lie number 3 that we tell ourselves, everyone else has it figured out. Okay. This is like watching a movie and believing the actors are actually the characters they play. That it's that simple. You scroll through these curated feeds, Instagram princess polished Sunday morning smiles, and you have decided everyone else received a life book and somehow you missed out when it was delivered. And what's going to happen, this is hurting the people that spend their life in comparison issues and people pleasers. Anybody new to faith or anyone going through a life transition, anyone active on social media, like we're anybody who's going to mistake confidence for confidence in other people. You're lying to yourself about this stuff. And then we believe it because we compare our internal chaos to everyone else's external composure. Like we're seeing someone's chapter 20 and listen bitch, I'm on like chapter 3. Social media just creates highlight reels. It's not called reality reels. Okay? And I feel like churches sometimes reward the appearance of having it together, so people learn to hide their struggles. And then you're going to just waste this enormous amount of energy maintaining an exhausting facade while feeling absolutely increasingly isolated. You don't ask for help because you assume you're the only one struggling. So you make decisions based on what you think you should do rather than actually going to God for specific direction. That's the guidebook in case you missed that. Okay. But you're missing that genuine community because connection requires that vulnerability and you're too busy faking your ass off. And the gap between your public, whoever you are, and private reality is going to create toxic shame. But when you drop this lie, you will discover the freedom of being a fellow traveler rather than a failed expert. You ask questions without embarrassment, and you're going to be able to build real friendships based on a mutual struggle, not just a mutual pretense. You stop making decisions designed to impress imaginary judges. You extend grace to yourself and other people, and you realize like having it all figured out was never the goal, but knowing God, who always does, is absolutely the point. Lie number 4, my feelings are facts. So this is like using a compass during a magnetic storm and refusing to acknowledge it might be giving false readings. Your emotions become your supreme authority. If you feel unloved, you are unloved. If you feel like a failure, you're a failure. If you don't feel God's presence, he's got to be absent. And we're telling this lie, my highly sensitive people, the people that have been told to trust their gut about everything, my people that are struggling depression and anxiety, my people living through that therapy culture bullshit that overemphasizes feelings without providing tools to evaluate them. We have been lying to ourselves and we believe it because feelings are intense and immediate. It feels true in our bodies before our minds can catch up. Our culture worships authenticity sometimes messing up what I feel with what is real. And past experiences where our feelings were dismissed make us overcompensate by treating them as infallible. What happens is you become enslaved to your emotional weather patterns. Okay. And those are influenced by like sleep hormones, blood sugar, a thousand variables. You make major decisions based on temporary feelings, and then you regret them once the emotion passes. You reject the truth that contradicts your feelings, God's love, your worth, capabilities. Like you ride on exhausting roller coasters with no solid ground beneath you. Relationships suffer because you require other people to validate your feelings that might not reflect reality. So, when you stop treating feelings as facts, you gain incredible stability. You learn to acknowledge feelings without being ruled by them. I feel abandoned, but I know God promises to never leave. You investigate your emotions like curious data points rather than courtroom verdicts, okay? You'll make decisions based on truth and values and wisdom while you can honor your emotional experience. You develop emotional resilience so feelings become weather you can experience without letting them dictate your direction. Number 5, and boy, is this one personal for me. I should be further along by now. So, this is like planting an oak tree seed on Monday and getting pissed off on Friday that it's not producing shade. You look at your spiritual growth, your career trajectory, your relationship status, or maybe your life circumstances, and you've decided that you're behind schedule on some invisible timeline. So I know the struggle is real for my type A personalities. Anybody in the helping profession, my late bloomers, anyone who's experienced setbacks or wasted years, and I'm talking to anyone who has compared their timeline to peers who seem like they're ahead. And we believe this because we absorb that cultural narrative about when life milestones should happen. We forget that God's clock doesn't match our calendar. So we see other people's progress and assume that we're in a race. And then we're feeling shame about seasons of struggle or wondering, and we label them as lost time. So now you're living under constant low grade disappointment with yourself. You rush decisions to catch up. And a lot of times that's going to make shit worse. You miss the lessons of your current season because you're focused on the next one. You diminish God's work in you right now by measuring yourself against an arbitrary standard. You're starting to develop resentment towards yourself and towards God for his timing, towards other people for their progress, towards you for your pace. The pressure is crushing, and I'm going to tell you guys it's absolutely counterproductive. But when you release this lie, once again, you discover that God is never late, he's thorough. You recognize that your delays often contained essential preparation. Essential preparation. You celebrate the growth without comparing speed, and you can give yourself permission to be exactly who you are. Paradoxically, that's going to accelerate genuine transformation. Two things can be true at the same time. You stop sprinting through your life and you start actually living it. You realize that further along often means deeper roots, not taller branches. And depth, honestly, genuinely takes time. Number 6, if I set boundaries, I'm being selfish. This is like a garden without a fence, and then you feel guilty because the deer eat all your veggies. Like you believe that saying no, protecting your time, or limiting access to your energy means that you're failing to love others like Christ did. And this is a lie. This is a lie. How many times did we have to hear you have to die to self? Have no self. You don't matter. We've misunderstood those things. And we believe it because we've been taught that toxic ass lesson confuse martyrdom with maturity. Like we've seen the boundary setters judged harshly, especially in like church communities, right? We mistake Jesus' sacrificial love, which was intentional, which was purposeful, with that compulsive self-abandonment. So now we fear rejection more than we fear losing ourselves. And when you live this lie, you become depleted, resentful, useless to anyone, including yourself. And you're going to attract people who are going to exploit your lack of boundaries. And genuine relationships are going to suffer because you're not available. You're modeling unhealthy ass patterns for your kids, anyone who's watching you. Your yes is meaningless because you say it to everything. Nothing is special. No one's important. You have now confused exhaustion with devotion, and eventually your body or mind forcing boundaries through illness or breakdown, boundaries you could have set intentionally with grace. And when you break this lie, when you embrace the idea of healthy boundaries, you discover that Jesus himself modeled them. He withdrew from crowds. He said no to urgent demands so he could stay aligned with his life's mission, telling people what he wouldn't do. Your relationships improve because people get the real you, not a resentful martyr. Your yes gains power because it's chosen, not coerced. And you have energy for what God actually called you to do. And you teach other people to respect themselves by respecting yourself, your love from fullness rather than just living on fumes. Number 7, this one is great. This one is so good. This is just who I am. I can't change. This is like finding a little caterpillar and insisting this is just who he is. He'll never fly. Like you identify so completely with your current patterns and your current struggles, arguing for your limitations that you foreclose on transformation. I'm just not a morning person. I'm bad with money. I'm not good with words of affirmation. I have a temper. That's just me. I'm not creative. I'm not disciplined. I'm not brave. I can go on and on and on. And this is for people that feel like they've always needed defending, people exhausted by self-improvement culture, and anyone who's really mistaken personality traits for destiny, okay? And we believe it because change is hard. Change is hard and it's uncertain. And our current identity feels real safe, even when it's painful to yourself, even when it hurts people around you. We've absorbed labels that other people put on us, family, teacher, past failures, and then we build a life around it. Neuroplasticity and spiritual transformation sound good in theory, but they feel impossible in practice. I get that. Staying the same requires less faith than believing God can renew our minds. It's less work, right? But this is what happens. You become a living contradiction. If anyone is in Christ, he is new in creation. You contradict that because you stay trapped in patterns that harm you, that hurt other people, and you're calling it authenticity. Like you don't develop that spiritual discipline because that's not who you are. You use your identity as an excuse. It's just an excuse when really you need to use it as a starting point. So you miss the entire adventure of cooperating with God and the people in your life for your transformation. You settle for survival when God is literally offering abundance. When you reject this lie, you step into the story's wildest promise, the Bible's wildest promise, that you actually can change. And not through that white knuckled willpower alone, but like through surrender and practice, community. I couldn't do it without God, but you stop defending your limitations and then you start getting curious about your potential. And that is our whole purpose in this human experience, to step into our potential. You embrace disciplines not as drudgery, but like a partnership. You're working with God on who you're becoming. You discover that personality and character are different. Your core self can remain while destructive patterns transform. You become living proof that people can actually change, and that gives you hope. And it gives everyone watching you hope. And that's it. We came here for the human experience. What is stopping you from stepping into your potential and calling bullshit on the lies that you've been telling yourself? Because it's time.